morning, fellow Americans. I'm your host, Savannah Smiles.
And I'm your co-host, Tony Boyardee.
Let's get right into the news! First story for tonight. Things are heating up between President of the Second National Bank, Nicholas Biddle, and U.S. President Andrew Jackson. This week, Andrew Jackson vetoed the charter for the National Bank. Previously, Jackson has split up the National Bank into numerous pet banks, putting the nation's money into the hands of the states. As a Democrat, Jackson's campaign pushed for the end of the National Bank. Jackson calls this move a major success. As an alternative, Jackson enacted Specie Circular, requiring all federal land purchases to be made with gold and silver. This, however, has created speculation of an imminent financial crisis.
To add more fuel to the fire, Jackson has taken action against corrupt government by implementing an office rotation system, which limits a politician's time in office. Instead, Jackson has rewarded loyal supporters with government jobs via the spoils system. These actions are likely a result of the scandal that took place during the 1824 presidential election. And what people are calling the corrupt bargain, Henry Clay, Speaker of the House, leveraged his power to persuade Congress to elect John Quincy Adams in exchange for being appointed to Secretary of State.
Well, this is brought to you by Savannah Smiles from Donkey News Network. Here today we've got freedom power. You tired of feeling weak? Guess what? Take some of this, you'll be feeling freedom through your veins. George Washington would be really proud of you. That's all. In another success for Jackson, the court ruled in Worcester v. Georgia that Indian nations are, in fact, not nations, subject to previous court case Cherokee Nation v. Georgia. This prompted Jackson to pass the Indian Removal Act, calling for dismissal of Indians from Georgia. Due to non-compliance from Indian tribes, Jackson called for state militias to aid the tribes on their relocation.
In his effort to expand democracy, Jackson has passed various acts that allow for universal white male suffrage. In addition to this, Jackson has also pushed for the popular election of the U.S. President. Here today, we are in Richmond, Georgia, to interview tobacco farmer Billy Bob, giving us insight on the new laws being passed by Jackson. Thanks for joining us here today, Billy Bob. Pleasure being here, Mr. Boyardee. First question today, what are your thoughts on Jackson's policy on universal white male suffrage?
Let me tell you what, partner. Around these parts, every male blessed by the Holy Spirit is jolly over our God-given President, Andrew Jackson, policies. Thanks to Mr. Jackson, now we, common man of the South, have the blessing of voting for the United States President.
Thank you for that, Billy Bob. Next question. Overall, how do you feel about Mr. Jackson?
Oh, I think the man is a godsend. Not only is he the best president this country's ever seen, but he also is a well-dressed war hero from the Great War of 1812. This man single-handedly defeated those gosh darn tea-mongers in the old Battle of New Orleans. I reckon that he's the great purifier of America.
What do you mean by great purifier of America?
Well, Jackson's been getting rid of those barbaric savages that surround my property.
Why do you bring that up? How do you feel about...
What, you just call me hillbilly?
What in tarnation are you doing on my property?
My property? You're the one who stole my property.
Oh, I'll tell you what, you raided...
Breaking news. This just in. President Jackson has ordered the federal army to prepare for conflict with South Carolina, following a heated debate over states' rights. John C. Calhoun has called for the nullification of the tariff of abominations that generated much controversy in the South. This crisis arose after debates continued between Senator Daniel Webster and Senator Robert Hayne on the topic of the controversial tariff. We will bring you more information on this developing story later tonight. This has been Savannah Smiles with Donkey News Network.
Let's get get right into the news!
Let's get right into the news! That's extra.